She ignored me in front of everyone. So I made the ultimate move. I got engaged to her best friend. At Paula's birthday party, she clinked glasses with everyone in the room. Everyone except me. I stood there, gift in hand, the very one she once said she always dreamed of. Weeks of preparation went into it, memorizing her favorite color, wrapping it myself, skipping work meetings just to get there early. And yet, the moment I walked in, she didn't even glance at me. Ryan, her old college friend, was the first person she hugged. She laughed at something he said, her hand lingering on his arm, as if I wasn't even in the room. People greeted me politely, but Paula didn't say a word. Not a hello, not a glance. She walked past me 3 times, once to fix her makeup, once for photos, and once to fetch champagne. For Ryan. I thought maybe she hadn't noticed me, but then I caught her eye. She hesitated for a second and then looked away as if I were invisible. I wasn't invisible. She just wanted me to feel that way. I stayed in the corner while she cut the cake. Ryan was right beside her, joking about how he should have been the one to make the wish. She giggled, "Maybe next year." The room laughed with them. And then I realized this wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, a message, a public one. I smiled, pulled out my phone, walked up to the small stage beside the DJ booth, tapped the mic twice. Music stopped. Paula froze mid-laugh, eyes wide as she saw me in the spotlight. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, my voice calm, "but I have some good news too." I looked straight at her. I just got engaged. The room gasped. Paula blinked, confused. I shifted my gaze to Wendy, her best friend, standing across the room. She nodded. Paula's wine glass slipped from her hand and shattered. I didn't flinch. I had clinked too many empty glasses with her in the past. Tonight, I raised one for myself. The worst part? She didn't even realize what she'd done. She thought I'd always be there, that no matter how far she drifted, I'd stay, that my silence was patience, not pain. But I was tired of being the second choice, tired of making excuses for her, of justifying why she kept choosing someone else over me, tired of holding on to a version of her that didn't exist anymore. At work, I couldn't focus. Designs blurred into meaningless shapes. My boss asked if something was wrong. I said I was tired. Not a lie. I hadn't felt rested in months. Wendy texted me that afternoon, "You okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back, "Yeah, just thinking you didn't deserve what happened last night." I didn't reply after that. What could I say? That I knew? That I kept waiting for Paula to turn around and see me standing there? That I had spent months making excuses for her, hoping that if I loved her hard enough, she'd come back? That maybe the worst kind of heartbreak isn't when someone leaves, but when they stay and act like you're invisible. By evening, Paula still hadn't called. I pictured her laughing again with Ryan, maybe watching a movie together, maybe sharing jokes I hadn't heard in months. I had once been her person. Now I wasn't even part of her world. Even so, as I sat on the couch holding the necklace I never gave her, a strange calmness settled over me. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to compete with someone who didn't even realize they were winning. If she had already chosen Ryan, in action, if not in words, I would choose myself. That was the only way to stop drowning in this silence, the only way to finally breathe again. 2 days later, Paula came home earlier than usual. I was on the floor, surrounded by fabric swatches, trying to finalize a client's palette, when I heard the door click open at 7, not her usual 10. She carried a brown paper bag from her favorite Thai store. She set it on the table carefully, like it meant something. "I thought we could eat together tonight," she said. I looked up. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't cold either. Her expression was cautious, testing the waters of something she hadn't stepped into for a long time. We sat at the table. She placed the food out carefully, separating mine from hers like she remembered what I liked, even handed me an extra packet of hot sauce. "You always forget this," I said quietly. She paused. "I thought you didn't use it anymore." "No," I said. "You just stopped bringing it." She exhaled softly, not saying anything more. We ate in silence for a while. Then she spoke. "Ryan's taking a job overseas." I didn't react. "He'll be leaving in a few weeks. Probably won't be around much before that. Family, packing, that kind of stuff." I nodded slowly. "Good for him." Paula stared at me. "That's it? What else is there?" I set my chopsticks down. "Do you want me to ask if you'll miss him?" She bit her lip. "Mitchell, I thought you'd care more." I tilted my head, studying her. "Why?" "Because you expected me to yell, fight, break down, so you could feel needed again." I stood and started clearing the table. "You only notice me when I stop reacting. When I choose silence over confrontation, suddenly I'm the villain?" She followed me into the kitchen. "That's not true," she said. "Isn't it?" I asked. "You ignored me at your party, spent nights with him, canceled plans, acted like I was too much, too needy, too sensitive. And now, because he's leaving, suddenly I matter again?" She was quiet. Then she said the thing I hadn't expected. "Wendy told me she likes you." The plate froze in my hand. I didn't believe her at first. But then I started paying attention, the way she looks at you, how she talks about you. I asked her, she didn't deny it. I turned slowly. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I realized I might lose you." I stared at her, not with anger, but with something heavier. I said softly, "You already did." Paula was stunned. And then I understood the twist wasn't just Ryan leaving. It wasn't Wendy having feelings for me. It was Paula finally realizing she'd built her life around someone who always had one foot out the door, while the one who stayed was the one she forgot to see. Some realizations, though, come too late. The next weekend, Wendy invited me to a small dinner with mutual friends. Paula wasn't going. She said she was tired, wanted to rest, told me to go if I wanted. I went not because of Wendy, not for the invitation, but to breathe without being measured against someone else's expectations. Wendy didn't make it awkward. She didn't hover. She sat beside me, spoke when spoken to, quietly passed me water when I forgot to reach. Comforting. When dinner ended, we stepped outside, the sky low, cloudy, the air cool. She asked softly, "Are you okay?" I nodded. "You're sure?" she pressed. I hesitated, shook my head. "No." She didn't ask more questions, walked beside me in silence. At the end of the block, I stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Did Paula ever tell you when she stopped being in love with me?" Wendy exhaled. "Not outright, but they were moments, small things. She talked about you like part of her routine, not her life. Comfortable, familiar, useful, but not exciting." I nodded. "That's what I thought." "She's my friend," Wendy said carefully, "but I saw how she treated you, how you kept showing up and she kept walking past like you weren't there. That's when I realized maybe the loudest heartbreaks aren't when people leave, it's when they stay and act like they already did." The next day, Paula asked if we could talk. We sat on the living room couch. Silence, broken only by the ticking clock. "I've been thinking," she started, twisting her hands in her lap, "about everything. Us, Ryan, the party. I know I've been distant." I said nothing. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't realize how far I'd gone until I saw the way you looked at me that night, like you didn't recognize me." "You were right," I said. "I didn't." "I never meant to hurt you,"
she said softly.
But you did, I replied. I thought you'd always be there, safe, steady, and I guess I stopped trying because I thought I didn't have to. I looked at her. Not just guilt, not just regret, but fear. Fear that I had finally let go. You used to be the person I ran to, I said. Now, you're the reason I want to leave the room. She blinked, holding back tears. I want to fix this, she said. Tell me what to do. I'll do anything. I stood and opened the drawer, pulled out the necklace I never gave her, placed it on the table between us. You remember this? Her eyes widened. You bought it? I did, a month before your birthday. She opened the box slowly, fingers trembling. Her hand flew to her mouth. I remember. But you forgot, I said. She closed the box. Why didn't you give it to me? Because that night, you were already wearing someone else's attention. She shook her head. Mitchell, No, I said firmly. Let me finish. I sat across from her. For months, I waited for you to come back to me. I made excuses for the way you pulled away. I told myself Ryan was just a phase, that you were stressed, that I wasn't being fair. But the truth? I was just afraid to admit the love we had wasn't there anymore. At least not from you. She wiped her face, but stayed quiet. I don't hate you, I said. You were important to me. You still are. But I can't be with someone who needs to lose me, to see me, to remember me only after it's almost too late. Her mouth opened, words caught somewhere between apology and confession. Then my phone buzzed. Wendy. I hope you're okay. Let me know if you need anything. I looked up at Paula. There's something else. What? At your party, I told everyone I got engaged. I did it because I needed to break the pattern, to stop being the one you always looked through. You said it to hurt me. No, I said. I said it to remind myself I could still be seen. I nodded at Wendy. She smiled quietly. Paula covered her mouth, eyes wide. Wendy's not a replacement, I added. She didn't push herself into this. She didn't ask for any of it, but she was there when you weren't. The room fell completely silent, save for the sound of Paula's shaky breath as she tried to hold it in. So, that's it? We're just done? I looked down at the necklace. You stopped being mine long before I stopped trying, I said. But deep down, you always knew I wouldn't wait forever. She lowered her head, tears finally falling. I hope you find someone who makes you feel like you belong again, like you matter, because I did, and I would have stayed forever if you just looked up. I stood, walked to the door, and left. That was the moment everything broke, not with a scream, but with silence. 3 weeks later, I sat in the cafe where Wendy and I first bumped into each other, outside of Paula's circle. That day had been rainy, and she'd offered to share her umbrella while we waited for a cab. She didn't say much, just smiled and held it over both of us, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Simple gestures, quiet presence. That was her. Now, sunlight poured through the windows, casting golden shadows across the floor. Wendy sat across from me, stirring her tea with the same calm grace she always had. Are you sure about this? She asked. I've never been more sure, I replied. She hesitated, eyes softening. I don't want to be the reason Paula loses something. You're not the reason. She lost me on her own. You just reminded me what it felt like to be seen again. I never thought it would turn out like this, she said quietly. Neither did I, replied. But sometimes the cleanest break comes when people show you who they really are. She nodded slowly, then pulled out a small velvet box from her bag. You left this with me. Thought you might want it back. I took it, opened it, and stared at the ring inside. Simple, elegant, something I had picked out long ago, planning to propose on Paula's next birthday. Funny how things change. I snapped the box shut and slipped it into my pocket. Later that evening, Wendy and I walked into the charity gala Paula had organized for her company. She looked stunning in a navy gown, moving through the crowd like she owned every inch of the space. For a moment, her expression faltered when she saw us, but only for a second. "Mitchell," she said, voice tighter than usual, "I didn't expect to see you here." "I wasn't planning to come," I said calmly, "but I remembered I promised to support causes that matter." Wendy smiled politely. "Lovely setup, Paula. You really outdid yourself." Paula's gaze flickered between us. "You two seem close." I didn't answer immediately. I just said, "It's nice, isn't it, to be with someone who doesn't make you feel like a ghost?" Her jaw tightened. "So this is about revenge?" "No," I said calmly. "This is about closure." The lights dimmed for the ceremony, and we took our seats. Paula sat a few tables away, glancing back more than once. At the end of the night, Wendy and I stepped outside. The air was crisp, the sky clear. Everything about the moment felt light. Just as we were about to leave, I heard footsteps behind us. "Mitchell." I turned. Paula stood there, arms crossed, eyes full of something I couldn't name. "I just want to ask one thing," she whispered. "Was there ever a version of this where you would have stayed?" I looked at her for a long moment. "There was," I said, "but that version of you would have chosen me before you had to lose me." She closed her eyes. "I loved you," she said softly. "I know. But you didn't protect that love. You left it out there for someone else to feel more valued than I ever did. I made mistakes, and I paid the price every day I waited for you to come back." She looked at Wendy, then back at me. "So what happens now?" I stepped closer, voice gentle. "Now you keep walking forward, just not towards me." "I thought we were forever," she whispered. "You thought I'd stay no matter how you treated me. That was your mistake. Mine was believing you'd never forget what we had." She opened her mouth, stopped, then took a step back, eyes glistening. I turned to Wendy and extended my hand. She took it without hesitation. Paula called out one last time, "Mitchell!" I stopped, but didn't turn. "She already doesn't," I said over my shoulder. Then we walked away. No guilt. No pain, just the finality of a door I'd left open for far too long finally closing behind me. When we reached the car, Wendy looked at me quietly. "Are you okay?" I nodded. "Yeah. For the first time in years, I am." I leaned against the door and took a deep breath. She used to make me feel small, like I had to earn her time, her affection, her presence. Wendy rested her head against my shoulder. "And now?" "Now," I said, "I know I never had to beg for something that should have been given freely." The revenge hadn't come through anger or cruelty. It came through grace, through letting go, through showing her that the man she thought would always wait had already found someone who didn't need reminding of his worth. And as we drove away, I didn't look back. Some endings aren't meant to be mourned. They're meant to be walked away from, with your head held high and your heart finally light.